Imagine this as a parent, a concerned father clashing with this major airline, disputing the airline's treatment of his two unaccompanied kids on a recent journey. The dad here, Chad Gray, says that his two children, ages 7 and 9, boarded a Frontier Airlines flight last month in Des Moines, Iowa, headed for Orlando. Flight ended up diverted because of some bad weather, so ended up stopping in Atlanta late that night. The dad claims a Frontier Airline employee, using her own personal car, actually drove his kids to an Atlanta hotel without letting this father know, and his children spent the night there. Now, the airline says the kids were in contact with their mother before going to the hotel, and they added this, quoting Frontier, in keeping with Frontier's policy, the children were attended to at all times by a Frontier supervisor, placed in a hotel room overnight, and provided with food. So the next day, the kids flew on from Atlanta to their intended destination of Orlando. But let's get to the bottom of this here. We've got the dad, Chad Gray, father of these two children, along with his attorney, Alan Armstrong. So, gentlemen, good to see both of you. And Chad, first, if I may, just on your emotions, talk to me about what it was like going through, knowing that your kids, both under the age of 10, went through this.
Yeah, hi, Brooke. Thanks for having me. Very good question. I think the emotions were obviously running very high. The frustration levels were running very high. Regardless of whether, Jennifer and I should have put the kids on the plane, as unaccompanied minors is really besides the fact. I think once you decide to make that decision and the airplane, Frontier decides to take responsibility for those children, and then when they don't follow, protocol to let the parents know that, hey, here's what we're doing with your kids. We're actually going to take them off airport premises and put them in a hotel, and we're actually going to drive them to the hotel in an employee's vehicle.
Let me jump in. When did you first hear from the airlines what was happening with your kids?
Well, we never heard from the airlines whatsoever. So I think the statement said that the children were in contact with us. That is correct. My son called me around 12:30 at night to let them know that they had been diverted to Atlanta and that they were kind of waiting to see what was going to happen. And then 2.5 hours later, I did hear from a text message from my son from another unaccompanied minor's cell phone stating that flight to Orlando had been definitely canceled and that they were trying to figure out what they were going to do with the six unaccompanied minors.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is that to both the kid's mother and to you heard zilch from the airline, and you only heard from your kids because they happened to borrow a cell phone from another kid who happened to be on the plane.
I think 100%. That is 100% correct, Brooke.
Okay, so Alan, to you as the lawyer, this is what Frontier says. Our records show that the children were in contact with their mother before being transported to the hotel and with their father the following morning before leaving on the continued flight, and it goes on here. So Frontier says the kids were in contact with mom and or dad before getting to that hotel, and I'm just confused. Were they or were they not?
I think they were not in contact with the airline. I think that's the issue. I think the mother tried to contact Frontier at the Orlando facility and received no information. So the issue is a lack of communication between the airline and the parents.
Okay, and then Chad, Frontier is also saying that you went to the media to complain about this happening to your kids before you went straight to the airline. Why did you do that?
Well, for one, we actually try to go through the appropriate channels first when trying to deal with Frontier. Jennifer Cardenetta's mother contacted Frontier after the ordeal, and they gave her a generic 1-800 number that only accepts reservations and canceled reservations. So there was no appropriate channel that Frontier was offering us. I did reach out to Frontier on Twitter, and they gave me a generic response: please contact our customer service using this this online form. And so from there, with the previous dealings that we had with them at the airport and trying to get in contact with them, and in the previous 2 times after the incident, it was clear that they weren't taking the necessary actions they should to try to reach out to us. And so that's why we actually went to Alan, and then from there we went to the network.
Alan, what is protocol for unaccompanied minors in a case like this, where they're diverted to another city where there aren't plans? Is protocol putting kids in an employee's personal car and taking them to a hotel?
No, it is not. In fact, there are no regulations promulgated by the FAA relating to this situation. This is an ad hoc situation the employees took upon themselves because there was no procedure in place to be followed.
So when this happens and a flight is diverted, what do airlines normally do with kids?
They make it up as they go along, Brooke, which is exactly what they had here, with the exception of Delta Airlines. Delta Airlines does in fact have a policy and procedure for the situation, but the other airlines do not.
Okay, Chad, just rounding out, back over to you. Last question. How do you want this story to end? What do you want from the airline?
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily need anything from Frontier, in regards to a comment to me or a statement, but I would like to see, changes in policies and procedures being put into place. Like Alan mentioned, I think Delta is, one of the only few airlines that has a strict procedure in place. Other airlines, have come forward and said they have some type of procedures, but Frontier obviously does not, and I don't think it's, industry-wide through the aviation industry. So I would love to see some type of, rules and policies and procedures put in place so this incident doesn't happen again. And so, I think next time if this incident does happen again, it might not end as well for the kids.
Okay. I'm glad your kids are okay. Chad, thank you so much
you.
for the time. And Alan Armstrong, nice to see you again.
Brooke,
Thank you,
thank
guys.
you.
Good luck.